Everyone, imagine this scenario clearly. 3 full days have passed since you finished the funeral of a beloved family member and covered their grave with earth in deep sorrow. But what if, in the quiet dawn, with absolutely no one around, a distinct sound of tapping came from beneath the ground in the middle of that silent cemetery? Knock, knock, knock. A rhythmic, clear, and desperate knocking sound. This is not just a ghost story or an urban legend.
It is a bizarre event that actually happened in a small village in England.
In the late 19th century, when this sound was heard from the grave of Thomas, an elderly man in his 70s, who had been definitively pronounced dead by a doctor at the time, the villagers were frozen in terror. The story I am going to tell you today is the unbelievable testimony of people who crossed the threshold of death, were locked inside a coffin, and miraculously survived to tell the tale. What on earth did they see in that pitch-black darkness? If you watch this video to the end, you will face a shocking truth, where the boundary between life and death as we knew it completely collapses. In the past, there were no precise brainwave scans or ECG monitoring systems like we have in modern medicine. Back then, if breathing stopped and the pulse could not be felt, a person was simply considered dead. Because of this, the fear of premature burial, being buried alive, was a very real terror in history. In fact, in some European graveyards of the past, scratch marks from fingernails were later found on the inside of coffin lids, revealing a horrific struggle for survival. The case of the elderly Thomas was no different. The villagers were trembling with fear, but driven by a sliver of hope, they decided to dig up the grave. When they finally cleared away the heavy soil and pried open the nailed coffin lid, they were struck with horror. Thomas, who was supposed to be dead, was sitting up in the coffin, staring blankly up at them. His fingernails were bloody from clawing at the wood, but his eyes were strangely peaceful. The testimony Thomas gave after his miraculous return was even more shocking than his survival. He claimed he was fully aware that he had died. He described passing through a narrow, dark tunnel and arriving at a space filled with a light that was dazzlingly bright, but never scorching. In that place, he met his wife and parents, who had passed away 20 years earlier. They were not old or sick as he remembered them, but appeared in their youngest, healthiest forms, welcoming him with radiant smiles. Thomas felt a sense of peace and love there that could not be expressed in words. All the pain of his earthly life, including the severe arthritis he suffered from, had completely vanished. However, at the peak of that happiness, he heard a massive, booming voice say, "It is not yet your time. You have work to do." And he was violently pulled back into the cold, dark coffin. Similar cases have been reported all over the world. In the early 20th century, a woman in Russia also woke up inside her coffin during her funeral, causing mourners to faint in shock. She too testified to a near-death experience very similar to Thomas's. She claimed that her soul left her body and floated in the air, watching her own funeral. She vividly remembered the grieving people and the moment her coffin was lowered into the ground. The common thread in these testimonies is that the world after death is not a place of fearful judgment, but a place of deep understanding and profound peace. They all unanimously say that as they reviewed their lives like a panorama, they realized that what mattered most was not money or fame, but the small acts of kindness and love they shared with others. Modern medicine explains this phenomenon as suspended animation, or Lazarus syndrome. It refers to a state where metabolism slows down extremely due to severe shock, disease, or certain toxins, making the person appear dead outwardly while life is faintly maintained internally. In the past, this was often misdiagnosed as death. Regarding near-death experiences, there is a fierce debate between the scientific explanation that it is a powerful hallucination created by a brain deprived of oxygen, and the spiritual explanation that the soul actually left the body. However, the scientific truth is not what matters most here. The important fact is that those who have been to the threshold of death completely change their attitude toward life. They no longer fear death and treat the rest of their lives as a bonus, gift, cherishing every single day. So, what should we learn from this bizarre and chilling story? First, Life and death are much closer than we think. We can cross that threshold at any moment. Second, rather than vaguely fearing the world after death, we should be grateful for being alive right at this moment. What those who woke up in coffins regretted most was not loving enough and not giving enough. It is said that after his return, Thomas abandoned his grumpy personality and spent the rest of his life caring for orphans. Say a warm word to the precious people around you today. That is the only way to ensure you won't have regrets in the cold darkness later. Death is the most powerful mirror reflecting life. The knocking sound from inside the coffin might have been an intense signal to wake up our sleeping lives. The light seen at the end of death is not far away. It is right here in our lives now. I hope this mysterious story brought deep resonance to your life today. If you found this story interesting, please share it with those around you. And if you want to gain more bizarre truths and wisdom from around the world, please press the subscribe button. This has been Senior Algorithm. Thank you for watching.